Hello, folks. So this week I wanted to take a look at the song Scarborough Fair. It's a song that I've been thinking about doing for a bit now. It's just one of those songs that's always on my mind somehow, and it's a really pretty song. So there are going to be a couple different sections to this. First, we're going to look at strumming the song. Then we're going to look at a little fingerstyle arrangement. And then we'll finish things off with a little bit of theory, so stick around if you're into that sort of thing. So we only have 4 chords in this song. We have D minor, C, F, and G. So D minor, I'm going to have my index finger on the 1st fret of the E string, ring finger on the 2nd of the C, and middle on the 2nd fret of the G. And then, of course, we have C, F, and our G. Well, those 3 are relatively common, but again, the chord diagrams will be on the PDFs. Now, this song is in 3/4 time. A lot of the stuff that we tend to do at the beginning, when we're first starting to learn an instrument, we're playing in 4/4 time. So we're counting in groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So forth and so on. This song is in 3/4 time, and that just means we have to rethink how we strum just a little bit. The principles are still the same. So, starting off the basics, just like when we were doing 4/4, we did these like long note strums, right? I could do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Something like that. So those are our long notes where we're just strumming once and letting that chord just ring right out. So we can kind of think, are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. All right, so that's the basic idea, but you probably heard that quick jump on rosemary, right? That line, rosemary and thyme. That's a quick transition. We had those 2 really quick chords happening in succession. That change happened really quickly. So when we're fleshing out a strumming pattern in this song, we're going to have to keep that quick change in mind. So we have our long notes that we can use, right? And then we could use quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like that. So I've just got 1 strum for each beat. And again, we're counting in groups of 3 now. Now, we could also break things up a little bit. So we can have, those long notes, we can have the shorter notes on every beat, or we could do a combination of the 2. We could do a long note and a short note at the end. And I really like that for this song. A lot of folk songs, a lot of like shanty type songs, I really like that rhythmic feel. It seems to fit really well with a song like this. So I'm playing a long note worth 2 beats and finishing each measure by playing that 3rd beat. So I'm strumming on the 1st and 3rd beat of our group of 3. So it'll feel like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that F and G thing, will trip up the rhythm that we've got, right? All of a sudden we hit that F and G, and then all of a sudden that rhythm didn't work. That long, short, long, short, long. So we're going to have to adapt. Now, what I like to do is, for a song like this, kind of have that long, short feel for most of the lines, but change to quarter note strums, those 3 short notes, in place of you know, where that F and G happens, or any other kind of quick movement has to happen. So I'm almost changing the strumming pattern during the song, and I'm just changing it for those little brief moments, and then going back to the regular pattern. So let's see what that sounds like. So I didn't need to do that quarter note strum toward the end, but like I've kind of established, you know, a bigger rhythm, a bigger strumming pattern, instead of just having this one shorter pattern. You know, I'm kind of taking another strumming pattern and mixing it up with our original pattern. Now, you can kind of be flexible with this. You'll notice that, you might notice if you were listening closely, that I accidentally threw in a couple extra hits. I'm throwing in some eighth notes, which is how I might normally play this song. So I'm going to play this without really thinking about it, so you can hear what I would normally do with a song like this. So I'll have a little vamp at the beginning. The strum that became most dominant when I was playing that is kind of a variation of the long, short, long. And it goes like this. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I'm still within that 3 beats. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1. So I'm doing a downstroke on 1, I miss on 2, upstroke on and, 3, and. Down, up, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and. And again, notice how my right hand is maintaining a consistent kind of, you know, rhythm going up and down. Regardless of whether or not I'm touching those strings, my hand is kind of helping me keep time. I'm going to play a little bit further into the song so we can see what it sounds like as it keeps going.
Scarborough fair, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. he strums, then she'll be a true love of mine.
And then I have to do the page turn, so.
Tell her to reap it in a sickle of leather, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and gather it all in a bunch of heather.
It's jazz.
Then she'll be a true love of mine.
And the final chorus, or the final verse, is the same as the first.
Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine.
A couple other little minor things that I was doing as I was playing through there is using my pinky finger for that C chord rather than using my ring finger, which is what I might normally do. But my ring finger is tucked down here when I'm playing that D minor chord. So when it comes time to play the C, my pinky happens to be free and it's living really close right there. So it's a much easier move for me to just use that pinky instead of having to rework my hand and you know, get all the other fingers out of the way. This is just a much smoother transition, especially where I'm going back and forth between this shape and this shape so much in this song. It's really nice that these three fingers can be devoted to the D minor, and this finger right here can be devoted to the C, and we don't have to worry about them getting mixed up. We can worry about things getting mixed up when we have to play that G, right? So that's the song in a nutshell. You can use any combination of those rhythmic ideas that we used in here. So we have a number of options. This arrangement, these chords and lyrics are written out in D minor, which is very comfortable to play on the ukulele. But if you're using the Simon and Garfunkel version as a reference, they actually play it in E minor. So they play it a step higher. We could write that all out, but this is playing it in D minor is a bit more approachable on the ukulele. It just fits really, really nicely. All right, so let's take a look at the tablature. So this is a arrangement for solo ukulele, and it's kept pretty simple in terms of like an arrangement like this. Doesn't mean it's not going to be a little tricky here and there, but it's going to be mostly straightforward. So we start off with this little intro, and we're just playing the D minor chord. But instead of playing the D minor chord like we were before, strumming, now we are just going to pick individual notes. So I'm going to play the C string, E string, and A string, while I'm holding down this D minor chord here. So I'm going to keep all those notes held down, and I'm going to pluck with my right hand those three notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now, just like with our other finger picking exercises, I am kind of assigning a finger to each one of those strings. So my thumb is assigned to the C string, my index finger is assigned to the E string, and my middle finger is assigned to the A string. Now, right now I'm not using the G string, but that'll come in a little bit later. So this part right here, these 4 measures, I've got a nice little comfortable spot. And if I wanted to, I could just hang out there for a while and just spend a bunch of time practicing that rhythm. I'm going to play it through again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. after those 4 measures, again, I was just holding the D minor that whole time there. Then we go into the melody. So then I'm going to stop playing the accompaniment part, and I'm just focusing on the melody here now. So I was playing this in the intro. So notice how I'm trying not to move my left-hand fingers around too much. I want to keep them relatively close to where they are because I'm going to keep going back to that D minor shape, and I don't want to, you know, get my fingers down here and then have to jump all the way back there. So watch closely as I play that again. I'm going to start from the very beginning and then go into the second row, and I'll play the first 2 rows. Okay, so I played the first note of the next row there, but you can see I'm playing that D minor shape again. Now, where I don't have to use the G string, I'm not using the G string in those first 2 rows of this song, so I could conceivably just play like this. I've just got the 1st fret of the E string and 2nd fret of the C string, open A, and I'm not touching the G. I could certainly do it like this. Let's see what that sounds like if I play those first 2 rows like this. Actually not a bad way to go. I've got other fingers kind of freed up at this point. That might come in handy as we continue on. Let's take a look at that 3rd row. So we move to the F chord. So this is where we start singing Parsley Sage. So I bounced around a little bit there, and I want to talk through what I'm playing. So that measure with the F chord, I'm playing the open C, then open A, then I play 3rd fret of the A, and then I'm going to jump up. I'm sliding my hand, I'm moving up to the 5th fret now. So I'm playing the 5th fret of the A string, then I play the 5th fret of the G string. Now while I'm playing that note, the next note is an open A. That's going to give me a little bit of time to get back to my first position down here. I'll play that again. Again, starting on the open C, open A, 3rd fret of the A, slide up to the 5th fret of the A, then I'm going to play the 5th fret of the G, open A, 2nd fret of the A, open G, open A, and I'm back in my D minor shape. So that's 2nd fret of the C and 1st fret of the E in that D minor shape there. But I'm not going to stay there for long because I'm going to jump back up to the 5th fret in the next row. I'm going to play from the beginning, and we'll play through those 3 rows. Stop right there. So we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot of movements. We're going back and forth between keeping a steady rhythm and playing the rhythmic idea of the melody. Right, so we're kind of trading back and forth. When I'm not playing the melody, I'm playing rhythm, and when I'm not playing rhythm, it's because I'm focused on playing the melody. I'm going to go from the last measure of row 3, that's measure 12, into measure 13. So The lyric would be time on this open A string, and then I play, and now I'm on measure 13.
Remember me to one who lives there.
Okay, so I've got a lot going on there, and again, it's this 5th fret business that I'm playing around with, right? And I'm getting I'm doing a little bit of barring over there. I'm gonna play that again. I'm gonna start on measure 13 here. So I spilled into measure 17 on the next row. But that is the idea. I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, so we'll take it one measure at a time. Measure 13, open A, 5th fret of the C, and 5th fret of the A. You can see which fingers I'm using there. Then measure 14, we play that 5th fret of the A again. Notice how I'm leaving my fingers right where they are, going into measure 14 here. So I just hit the A string, C string, back to the A string, all on the 5th fret. That's measure 14. As I'm moving into measure 15, what I want to be doing is I want to be getting ready to play the 5th fret of the G, C, and E strings. And in order to do that, while I'm playing the 5th fret of the A with my ring finger, I want to get my other finger or fingers, depending on how you might want to approach this, into place. So I'm going to play measure 14 into measure 15. Now that's how I find that this feels the best to me, is I'm barring with my middle finger. So I had been playing, let's see, if I go back to measure 13, I'm back at the beginning of this row, I'm going to play into that spot. 2, 3.
Remember me to one who lives there.
So this is measure 14 that I'm looking at right now. And as I play that 3rd beat, this finger stays right where it is, and my middle finger can be lifting up as I'm still playing that note there and getting this finger into place. Oh no! It's tricky. It's hard to get those notes in there. There is another way that I could do this. The 5th fret of my E string is the same note as my open A string. It's one of those weird fancy things on a ukulele, and other stringed instruments as well, where we have these duplicating notes. Now, when I wrote this arrangement out, I liked the sound and feel of that best, but we do have the option of using an open string in its place instead. I just want to see what that would sound like. I'm experimenting on the fly here. I like that. Previously, when I had written this out, I was looking at measure 16 and considering in measure 16 to use the open A string instead of the 5th fret of the E string. Again, same note. And I didn't like the way it sounded when I played this A note and then bounced off of it like that. But I kind of like the way it sounds if I use the open A as the 3rd beat of measure 15. That's kind of neat. I might want to change that. Kind of neat. So that is the 3rd beat in measure 15, and it would be the 1st beat in measure 16. I could turn both of those into open A string. So there are different ways to look at this. I mean, what I usually look for when I'm trying to figure out how I want to play something or how I want to arrange something, it usually boils down to the tonal quality, right? Even though this and this are the same note, you can hear some tonal differences. Playing the note fretted has a slightly warmer quality. I have more control over it because it's not just a string that's vibrating all by itself. My finger is on it, producing that note. I can mute it whenever I want just by loosening my finger. Just relaxing my finger instantly makes that note go away. So the amount of control I have is pretty great using that fretted note. But obviously an open string is very easy to play. The only thing I have to worry about is not accidentally hitting other open notes, or you know, in this case I have to skip over a string. So jumping my finger like that, it's easier in some ways, not necessarily in others, but I also have to think about the sound that note is making and if that serves my arrangement. So I will let you decide. You can draw in an open A if you want to in that spot. Of course, with all of these, you know, you can make your own adjustments. But let's finish up this song as it appears on the page. So I am now moving to the second to last row. So we kind of spilled into this measure before when we had measure 17. We played the open E and open C. And let's move on to measure 18. More open strings there. I play the open C, open E, and open G. And then I'm going back to my D minor shape. Again, I'm going to just use this two-finger version of the chord because I'm not playing the G string when I'm playing this D minor. So now I'm kind of going back to my original finger assignments. I'm going to keep the same finger assignment shape as I move into the next measure. I was playing the D minor here, but I'm going to play this C like this. So I'm using the same finger arrangement, but instead of these three strings, I am now using these three strings. So my thumb is on G, index finger is on C, and middle finger is now on E. So I'm going to play those two measures. I'm going to play the D minor on 19 and the C on 20. This is kind of a weird C because I'm holding the first fret of the E string there. Technically what I'm doing there is I'm playing a C suspended 4 chord, but we don't have to think about it like that. We can just think about it as playing a melody over a C chord. And then measure 21, we're playing an open E, second fret of the C, open C, and then we finish off by going back to our D minor. Same place that we started, so I play that 4 times. We can do a repeat. We can go back to the beginning and start over, or we could finish off by playing the final note, which is, as written, is the 5th fret of the A string. And you can see that I decided to use my pinky to play that because my pinky's already here. I can stretch it out. I could jump up another finger, do something like that. I could slide up to the note. This is a time that having your pinky finger, you know, ready and able to jump to one of these notes can save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. All right, so I'm going to go back and play the song from the beginning. We'll play through the whole thing. I'm just going to do it once. We won't play with the repeat. So let's see what this sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, the last little piece of this song that I want to talk about is the key that it's played in. So, at first glance, it might seem like, oh, this is in the key of D minor. Like we're playing D minor, and we keep coming back to D minor. D minor is our home. The D minor chord, I should say, is our home. However, if you look at the key signature, like if you look at the staff, our next to your treble clef there, and you don't see any sharps or flats, that might tell you, if you read traditional standard notation, that that's the key of C or A minor. It's got no sharps or flats, so it can't be D minor. The key of D minor has a flat in it, and this doesn't. We could also look at some of the other things that happen in this song that would tell us that this isn't a normal D minor. That's because what we're actually doing is we're playing D Dorian. So D Dorian is a mode. So we have our C major scale, right? So our basic scale. A mode takes that major scale idea, and we just mix the notes up a little bit. So instead of starting on C, we'll start on a different note. In the case of D Dorian, Dorian is a mode. We are starting on the second note of a major scale. So D is the second note of C. So D Dorian, we're using all the same notes as the key of C, but we start and end on D now instead. And take a listen to this, because it sounds a little different. Interesting, right? It doesn't quite, I mean, it starts off sounding kind of minor, but it doesn't end sounding minor. It kind of ends on almost like a hopeful, questioning sort of sound. So even though we are still playing with the notes from the key of C, it no longer sounds like C anymore. It doesn't sound like a major, and nor is it exactly D minor. Here's what a normal D minor scale would sound like. So that has a much more definitively minor sound, right? There's no question by the time we get to the end. It kind of stays in that zone, but D Dorian has a little something else. I don't know if you felt it, but I've always felt when that G chord hits in this song, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, like that G chord really pops out there, and it's a really interesting sound, something that we don't typically hear a lot in modern popular music. If we listen to a lot of Renaissance-y stuff, like it's pretty common. In a lot of Celtic music, it's very common. There are 7 different modes when we're talking about our what we call diatonic scales, our what we think of as major scales, just our regular scales, for lack of a better term. So we can start a scale on each note of our major scale. If we're starting on the root note, if we're looking at C, for instance, and we start on C, it's our major scale. Its fancy name is Ionian. And D would be Dorian. E would be a mode called Phrygian. F, starting on F, would give us the Lydian mode. Starting on G would give us Mixolydian. Starting on A would give us Aeolian, and that one is actually kind of familiar to us. The 6th mode, Aeolian, is also our minor scale mode. And finally, the 7th mode is Locrian. That's the weirdest sounding one. Like, that one's kind of as dissonant as you can get. It's a little weird of a concept. Maybe it's not the easiest thing, especially if you haven't dove head first into music theory stuff. But once you get into the music theory world, modes is a really easy concept to tap into and play around with some different ideas, get some different colors out of notes that you already have, that you already know. But yeah, modes are a fun thing to play around with. You can get some interesting sounds, and you can identify some interesting sounds in songs that you may already know. This song, I heard this song when I was pretty young. It was from my parents' record collection, Simon and Garfunkel, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. And yeah, that and among a lot of Simon and Garfunkel songs are very, very much ingrained in me. And if that's also the case for you, I hope you really, really enjoy playing this song. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time.